Alright guys, this is episode 2 of the Learn Roblox Dev With Me series. Last time we learned about events, specifically using the touched event to learn how an event triggers when a part is touched. But as we saw in the last video, our event keeps triggering over and over again because there are so many parts that are in our player model that trigger it. To fix that, we use something called debouncing. By the end of today's episode, you guys will understand how debouncing works in Roblox Studio and also be able to apply debouncing to the touched event. Alright, so let's start with an example of debouncing. So let's make a part. Local part equals game.workspace.part. Okay, so that's a variable for our part. As we know from last episode, this grabs the part named part from the workspace so we can detect touches on it. I explained that last episode about each part of the line of the code, so if you guys don't understand it, check out the last video. So now we need our debounce variable. Let's call it canTouch. So basically this variable acts as our debounce and tells us whether the part can be touched again. Now we can set up the touched event, so part.touched, and then connect it to a function. So connect function other part. So now every time we run the code, whatever the code is inside this function will tell us what to do to the part. So now we need our conditional statement telling the game only to continue if the part is allowed to be touched. So we can set this as if canTouched equals true, then now inside of our conditional statement, we can set the variable canTouch equals false. So basically now we're setting our debounce variable to false. So we lock the part so that any new touches after the initial touch are ignored. And then we'll write print touched once just to confirm it works. Now this part is the really important part. We need to include a task.wait statement so that it waits 2 seconds before allowing the touch function to be used again. And then after the task.wait statement, we need to make the debounce variable back to true. So canTouch equals true. So now after the 2 seconds are up, this event can fire again. Okay, so now our debouncing is successfully set up. So now let's test it within the game. Okay, so we're running to the part. And as you can see, we just touched the part, and in our console it does show that. Unlike the previous video, the event isn't firing over and over again. It's doing it once, and then waiting every 2 seconds, and then it displays it again if we're touching the part. Okay, so now that we understand the concept, let's do some practice problems. Alright, so I'll put problem 1 up on the screen. When a part is touched, to make it disappear and stay gone for 2 seconds before reappearing, and then wait 2 more seconds to allow it to disappear again. Alright, so basically the starting is the same. Local part, we set that up. We need our debounce variable again, so local canTouch equals true. And then set up the touched event as we usually do, connect it to a function. Then our if statement, if canTouch equals true, then set the debounce variable to false, and now here's where it changes. So we need the part to disappear and stay gone for 2 seconds. So that has to do with transparency. So we're going to set part.transparency equal to 1 to make it disappear. And then we'll write a task.wait statement for 2 seconds. Okay, so now it disappears for 2 seconds. Now we need to make it reappear again. So we'll set the part.transparency back to 0 to make it reappear. And then it says, wait 2 more seconds to allow it to disappear again. So we need another task.wait statement for 2 seconds. Alright, that's set up, and now we need to set canTouch back to true. Alright, so that looks like it's done. Let's test it out now. Okay, let's run it over to the part. And yes, it does disappear on touch. It should reappear 2 seconds later. Alright, and then we can touch it again 2 more seconds. Yeah, it looks to be working as intended. so that is the answer to practice problem number 1. Let's get into practice problem number 2. Okay, so now let's do practice problem number 2. I'll put it up on the screen. Make a part change color randomly once every 3 seconds. Okay, that should be pretty simple. Alright. Okay, so the first part is essentially the same. We understand that now. So I'm just going to keep it there. And what changes is the inside function. So we're changing the color of the part. So we need to do part.color equals, and we're changing it randomly. So it's going to be using the math.random function. So we need to set color 3.from RGB, math.random, and then 0 to 255 because that's the color values, and then copy and paste that 3 times. So it's 3, okay. And then it says once every 3 seconds. So we need to add a task.wait statement for 3 seconds. And that should be it for this problem. Let's test it out in the game. Okay, so when we touch the part, yes, it does change the random color. And as you can see, it isn't changing color immediately. It's waiting and then changing color. So our code does work as intended, it looks like. Let's move on to practice problem number 3. Okay, so now let's do practice problem number 3. I'll put it up on the screen. When the part is touched, make it grow larger for 2 seconds, then go back to normal size, and wait 2 more seconds before allowing the event to fire again. Okay, so this part should be the same. What changes is inside the function. Okay, so this time we're working with the size of the part. So we're gonna need to access the part.size, so the size of the part, and set that equal to, let's just do part.size times 2, so twice the size. And then we're gonna need a task.wait statement for 2 seconds. And then we'll set the size back to normal, so part.size equals part.size divided by 2. And then another task.wait statement of 2 seconds. And yes, this should work. Let's test it out in the game. Okay, so let's jump on the part. Alright, yeah, that works. Let's try and make it large again. Okay, yeah, this seems to be a success for problem number 3. Alright guys, now that is the end of today's episode on debouncing. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions about anything that we covered in today's video. In the next episode, we'll be learning more about the workspace with the concept of hierarchy, so like parent, children, find first child, and many more concepts. So stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you guys then.